I kind of want to start this morning by sharing a trip I had just about a week or so ago, and I was talking to a Mr. Dave Woodward at Insight in Phoenix. Dave's a vice president there, and Insight is an organization responsible for technical solutions for businesses throughout the world. So great chat with Dave, and he had given me a book while I was there called The Exceptional Presenter. And I thought, I'm going to use this book, some of its techniques in this presentation. It's not like I haven't had any other presentation type classes before or feel like I've got a terrible void in presentation skills, but I thought I'd give some of the techniques in there a spin. Of course, when I got done with the book, I realized that it was for making face-to-face presentations, and it reminded me of the somewhat awkwardness of doing these without somebody face-to-face. But there were some very good points in the book, and I'm going to share 5 of them very quickly. Talk about effective presentations. They start with a purpose. So the purpose of this presentation this morning is to make you aware of the cost of defects, both in our development and our support activities, to make this believable to you. A presentation, according to that book, also talks about goals. And my goal for this morning is for the improvement in the total cost of ownership of software solutions for those that are listening. The third aspect of a well-structured presentation talks about where we are today. And quite frankly, with defects, we're not in such a good spot, and I hope we'll see that as the slides progress. The fourth would be consequence, and quite frankly, the consequence of defects is that it leaves us short on resources. It makes our backlogs longer. It actually reduces our business value. It disrupts business. It causes outages. And of course, loss of data impacts our reputation as organizations. And the final aspect of presentations, according to the book, would be to define some next step or actions. So we certainly want to do that today. We want to look at some next steps for all of you to reduce overhead, talking about excessive costs and our ability to be agile or not be agile. So I'm going to come back to those 5 at the end of the presentation, and I'm going to actually turn to the very first slide here now and come back to the premise of this morning's presentation. So when I first shared the title of this presentation, proposed it to Mike, he said, "Surely you mean pay me now or pay me later." And I said, "No, Mike, it's not about paying me now or paying me later. This isn't like changing the oil in your car. This is about paying more for development, in development, and paying more on the support end of our software solutions." So I had to kind of convince Mike that the title itself was correct. And I hope I don't have to spend quite as much time convincing each of you as to the costs of both now and later, although the slides will certainly illustrate the now and later aspects of the cost of defects. I want to apologize up front, too. You're going to find that my slides are rather what I'll call dense. And what I mean by that is I tried to fill them with data content and thinking content. The purpose for doing that isn't to put up a slide with one vague thought and then talk about it for quite a while, but rather to put up slides that can point you to other references and confirm the issues that we're talking about this morning. So I'm not expressing mere opinion here this morning. I'm actually expressing a lot of research, much of which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So this is about pay me now and pay me later. Yes, I could, as many presenters do, restate this message in a more positive tense as save money now and save money forever or later. But that's just not my style. It doesn't really get a lot of folks' attention when you state things in a positive sense because they don't feel, they're not recognizing their own pain. So excuse me on that point as well. And yes, defects increase the cost of development and increase the cost of support. Oftentimes these defects show up as missing requirements. And of course a missing requirement is a defect, assuming that you were trying to elicit that in the first place. Oftentimes we'll just pass that off and say, we'll handle that in the next release. But anytime that we do a postponement or come back and fix something, we actually increase the likelihood of injecting additional defects when we fix the first defect. This is we'll get it right the next time syndrome also, as in we'll put it out today and we'll get it right tomorrow. Some of our methodological thinking right now in the software world is, well, we put out a release and then we get it right later. Quite frankly, that's not acceptable in the medical world where you're giving patients dosages to fight cancer, for instance, or in a weapon system, for instance, that misfires and or kills somebody, or even in the financial world where people make the wrong decisions. This get it right later, we'll deal with those aspects later, is sometimes troubling. Let's see, also, in some cases, adding rework is as simple as placing a product or on something like a sprint backlog. And I realize the wording on that item there is a little choppy, but basically we shift rework into a sprint backlog. We call it refactoring. We call it all kinds of things, but sometimes we don't recognize that there's defects involved there. And then, of course, our software world is growing increasingly complex today. It's all over. It's sophisticated. We've got architectural archetypes almost without bound. And all those help to increase the cost of defects because you have to do the forensics to run those down. So actually I should have called this thing Pay Me a Lot Now and a Lot More Later as it regards to defects. I've just lost the presentation, Susan, by clicking on the down arrow. Can you rescue me here? Okay.
Do you have a printout printed of slides by any chance?
I do have my slides in a PowerPoint presentation running in parallel here.
Okay. Do you want to just continue and just tell me when you want to move the slides, and I'll move the slides for you, and we should be fine.
Sounds good. So I'm now on the slide 9, rationale for the premise.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. I don't know what the click did there.
And sorry
to each of you as well. So I want to apologize again for the density of these slides. I'm not the type of person that puts up a sentence or two and dummies down presentations for a 6th grade level. I don't mean to insult anybody, nor to overwhelm anybody. But the focus really here is on the cost now and the cost later, thus 2 columns in the table. So I'm going to kind of walk through these with you. If you have questions, obviously submit them, and Susan will get them to me. We'll address them kind of toward the end. But these are the valid points I'm trying to make for setting the stage for the whole premise at hand here. So defect and rework costs do tend to be hidden. During development, customers call them changes. We call them scope creep. We do iterative testing, and one of the words that we use today that kind of go back and fix things and make things better for the future is refactoring. Now that's paying me now, today. Paying me a little later, these costs also tend to be more visible, but regarded as the cost of operations and maintenance. So we kind of shift the costs to ops and maintenance and disregard the fact that maybe some of this is because we didn't get it right the first time and there's a defect